Yeah, it's my life. No words, I guess. Have you ever loved someone so much you given on for? Not the expression, no, literally given on.
Wayward Courier, Chapter 29. I really wasn't surprised. He seemed a bit too eager the whole time. Shining Armored roared in pain as the armor-piercing 5.56mm round punched straight through his knight armor, his left foreleg and out the other side. He stumbled and tried to regain his footing. Shadow Dancer came and supported him, taking the weight off his injured leg. All the while Chrysalis watched what was happening in shock. "You monster!" the heavily armored stallion hissed. "Really?" Thomas asked back, his rifle pointing at the ground. "You call me a monster after what you nearly did? That's not what we're here for." "No, that's not what you're here for," came the angry reply. "I came here for," he hissed ominously as he rose to his hoofs, horn glowing, "is to kill her, and you won't stop me." "Why?" Shining Armor paused. "Why?" he asked, incredulously. "The why isn't important." "Everyone kills for a reason," Thomas explained. "Order, money, justice." He paused for a moment. "Revenge." Shining stayed silent. "That's it, isn't it?" the man asked, taking unsteady steps towards the injured stallion. "She did something, and you want to get back at her." "Why wouldn't I?" Shining snarled. "She nearly killed my wife. She launched an attack on the Capitol. She used me." He began to take quick, shallow breaths. "I was nothing more than food to her, and I never even realized. It took my sister to figure it out, and then she tried to kill her too." "I never wanted anyone dead," Chrysalis interjected. "Shut up!" Shining bellowed. "You will not speak." "So, murder," the courier said. "Do you really think it'll make you feel better?" "Not murder, revenge," Shining corrected darkly. "Revenge isn't worth it." "What would you know about revenge?" the captain asked, his voice dripping with contentment. "What do I know?" Thomas asked back, laughing. "What do I know? I walk across a fucking desert, killing everything that got in my way, trying to track down the man who put 2 holes in my skull and had me buried alive. I know more than any living being should." Shining seemed to try to take a step back. "The burning desire consumes you, takes everything you are and destroys it, and you don't get it back. After I killed Benny, I realized I had nothing to do. The only reason why I went to Vegas was to track him down. I had no purpose. I had no reason to live." "I have Cadence," Shining Armor retaliated smugly. "And do you think she'll want to do anything with you after this? Do you think she can love a murderer?" "My job," Shining continued. "You'll get court-martialed. If you're lucky, they'll give you a blindfold before they execute you." "My family," the stallion yelled, beginning to sound desperate. "You'll be lucky if the worst they do is disown you," Thomas smirked under his helmet. "And there is no way Twilight would want anything to do with you after this." "Don't you dare talk about my sister," Shining Armor hissed. "This isn't who you are," Thomas continued calmly. "You don't know me." "True, but I know your type. Revenge isn't the kind of thing men like you do." Without warning, the stallion sent a magical charge at Thomas. It smacked the man in the chest and knocked him onto the ground. "Is that all you do? Talk?" Instead of answering, he rolled onto all fours and fumbled with the straps of his helmet. He managed to pull up the rebreather just in time for him to begin coughing out blood. 800 rads, and he coughed up more blood. 75 rads, huh. I swear I just went over 600 before, Thomas said casually. He pushed himself up and stood, swaying as he tried to keep himself balanced. One more blast like that and I'm gone. He held his hands out and propped his gun. One more blast and you'll be no better like me. There was a tense silence. On Thomas's face was a complete, tranquil expression, one of the men who staring down death and was fully prepared to let it take him. No one knew just how long he stood there for waiting for shining armor to strike him down. It never happened. No, I can't. I can't do it. He fell to his knees, startling Shadow. When he pushed her away, he yanked his helmet off with his magic and flung it across the room, where it clattered against the stone. I refuse to sink to your level. You're right. I do this, my family would disown me. My wife would leave me. They'll strip me of my rank and position. I can't believe I nearly... My level, Thomas asked, sounding unamused. Really? That's your reasoning? Never mind. That you'll be committed cold-blood murder? What am I meant to do? Shining asked, though looking at Thomas but full of tears. How am I meant to live with myself? Let go and begin again. Shining gawked at him. Let go. Let go. That's your solution? Act as though it never happened? No. Remember it so you can learn, but don't let it dominate you. Forgetting what happened is even worse than letting it control you. Trust me. I know, the courier said sadly. He heard shifting behind him and noticed the green glow. In a swift movement, he pulled the magnum tucked into his pants out and pointed it at the changeling queen. Shining not might want to kill you anymore, but I can't say the same for me. So stay the fuck down, turn off the magic, and don't say a word. Trust me, I will make you beg for me to end it, he said, his voice twisting into a snarl the longer he spoke. So, that's it. Let go of the hate and move on? That's your secret? Shining asked. More to that than that, but that's a start. Thomas lowered the revolver and put it into his hands on his knees. Ugh, fuck, he muttered as he took a few deep breaths. I don't know how much longer I could stand. Are you done? Chrysalis asked, her voice loaded with contentment. I thought I told you to keep your mouth shut, Thomas retorted as he turned. And yes, we are. So why? What? The changeling queen asked in confusion. Why did you steal it? He asked. What possible reason could you have? My children within the castle told me of your weapons, of the frightening power they possess. With one of those, we could hold a city hostage and feed, she explained happily. Do you even know what that thing you stole does? Thomas asked, trying and failing to hide his smirk. It was completely different in design. It had to be the most powerful, the queen said. All right then, he replied, doing his best to stop himself from laughing. Give it back, he demanded, aiming the revolver at her. Give it back? Chrysalis spat back. Ha! Like I would. There was a bang and a painful scream. 5. Well, 4. Now of these shots are hollow points. The 6th shot is a hand-loaded round that should punch right through you. The hollow points won't, but they'll hurt like God knows what. Thomas said calmly, pulled the hammer back, and readied another round. The thing is, I have no idea which is which. It could be the next shot, or might have to go through them all. How lucky do you feel? He taunted. Hand it over. Chrysalis's horn glowed as she summoned the device she had stolen from behind her throne. It hovered between them in the green light of magic. As Thomas went to grab it, it moved in one end position at him. "This is for my children!" she screamed as she pulled the trigger. 2 seconds later, the courier was on the ground laughing his guts out. "You! Oh God, I can't believe you actually thought..." Shining Armor and Shadow Dancer looked at him and though as he lost his mind. "What?" Chrysalis looked at the Transportalponder and shook it vigorously. "Why won't it work?" she screeched as she pointlessly pulled the trigger. Eventually, Thomas managed to recover from his laughing fit. He coughed up a mouthful of blood before bringing himself up to his full height. He strode as best as he could, managed, and grabbed the Transportalponder, ignoring the minor radiation spike. In the same instant, he twirled his magnum so it would be holding it in the barrel. He then swung it around, slamming the changeling in the face with a solid wooden grip. "Thank you," he said ambitiously, as she laid sprawled on the ground, some of her fangs knocked loose. After that, everything's a bit gone. No, honestly, probably a side effect of the radiation poisoning for all I know. Or, more likely, that skull fracture. All I know that I woke up in a warm, soft bed in Canterlot with just under 300 rads. What the fuck? Were the first words out of Thomas's mouth when he opened his eyes. It didn't take him long for him to guess what happened. After close to 5 minutes of checking himself for any serious wounds or missing patches of his skin, he exited the room he found himself in, only to run straight into Celestia, Luna, and Twilight. "Ah, Thomas, you're awake." The Sun Princess trailed off, her gaze going lower and lower. The other two followed suit. "Oh my. How do you stand?" Twilight asked as she gawked, her face turning a brilliant shade of crimson, her tail instinctively tucked between her legs. "Ugh, for fuck's sake," Thomas muttered as his hands moved to cover his crotch. He turned around and went back into the room. He emerged a moment later, the blanket taken from the bed and wrapped around him. "Better?" "Much," Celestia replied, glancing at her sister who remained impassive the whole time. No wonder you were screaming," she muttered over the telepathic link. "You're just jealous," Luna retorted. "How do you feel?" she asked him, looking him up and down. "Better than I should be," Thomas said, checking his Pip-Boy. "I was at a near fatal level of rads. How am I not dead?" he asked. "You have Twilight to thank you for that," Celestia said, nodding at her student. Whether the unicorn's face was red from what she had just seen, or the phase was unclear. She remembered that you've treated yourself for something similar before, and managed to instruct us on how to help. The doctors didn't like not being able to use magic, Twilight added. They also detected a skull fracture, muscle tears, and that horrible cut on your left hand. Thomas glanced at the bandages wrapped around it. Luckily, my brother and the other knights were able to get you out before things got too serious. Speaking of the captain, Luna injected, he had a particular injury, a small hole in his left leg, something made from a small metallic object traveling at high velocity. What's worrying is that it went right through his armor. The indigo alicorn fixed a hard stare on the naked man. What did you do? It was shoot him, or let him murder the changeling queen. What? Twilight yelled, unable to believe what he had just said. No, there's no way my brother would do something like that, she said with a nervous chuckle. Right? She asked, sounding unsure of herself.
Just carry on, don't mourn, rejoice every time you hear the sound of my voice. Just know that I'm looking down on you, smiling and nodding and feel a thing. So baby, don't feel no pain, just smile back. And when I'm gone, just carry on, don't mourn, rejoice every time you hear the sound of my voice. Just know that I'm looking down on you, smiling and nodding and